Thanks for checking out Token Says. This is my third attempt at recording this video. I'm a little under the weather. I'm gonna try to just edit what I can from this one and the previous ones together. Bear with me, please, okay? I've got a 5-year-old who made me sick. Alright, so what I have here is just a little scene set up. I've got a kobold and I've got a fighter. The fighter is a player character and the kobold's just an NPC. What we're focusing on with this, I'm just showing how to use it for player characters. This is something player characters, as long as they have access to the Foundry server, they can set this up on their own for their PCs, which is really fun and very cool. As a GM, you might want to set up some other circumstances to occur for NPCs, both like a generic kind, such as these kobolds, or a villain of some sort. And I don't have direct examples of those ready to go to show you, but we can definitely walk through that, and I can cover that a little bit here. So let's start by opening our fighter's character sheet. And in the character sheet, up at the top, you'll find these 3 little dots here. Click on those and look for prototype token. Now, if you're like me, and you've got hundreds of modules, this list is impressive. But prototype token is going to be there. In your token setting menu here, we don't have to look at any of these details. We're looking for those 3 dots right here, the toggle controls here thing. We're going to click on that and click on Token Says. Now this is different from previously. Previously this sat up here in the header, but in v13 we've started hiding these things in this little list, which I like a lot. And then we have the configure token settings saying, this is the full list. If you go to the settings for the module, you'll see a full list. When you come from the prototype token page, it will automatically search the name of the token in here for you. So that way you can see the ones that work with that token. That's the center column right here where you see Koji Hideyoshi. For our example today, I'm not going to go over a lot of these other ones. I'm mostly focusing on the crits right here. Now, you can be general. These Koji crits will play every time Koji crits, or you can be specific. These Koji crits, which are for a specific weapon, will only play when this actor or token crits with that specific weapon. Let's open those and take a look. Let's look at, in this configure saying box, we've titled it something easy to remember. This is when the character Koji crits. Simple. Keep it simple, everybody. For the token name, you put in the token's name. I put in the full name, Koji Hideyoshi, because that's what shows up on his token. That's also what shows up on his actor. So for me, that's important to keep the same. Other players have different setups, and I'm going to show you how we work with that. This option right here says use actor name. If you float under this little eye right here, there's a tooltip that shows it matches the token's name to the triggering token's actor name instead of its token name. You can put multiple entries using the separator of a pipe, which can be changed in the options. So I could put something like Koji Hideyoshi and pipe Bob. And that way, if there was any actors named Koji, Hideyoshi, or Bob, they would both trigger this. But this is also useful having that checked just in case Koji's in disguise and I rename his token, or he's been wild shaped and now his name is Bear parentheses Koji. Like, those situations come up frequently, and this will maintain that it will work. You can also invert this by not listed names. I can click this and it will look for any actors not named Koji Hideyoshi. When they crit, this will occur. But instead, we're going to set it the way I had it before. We want specifically Koji, tokens connected to, linked to his actor to trigger this. I set the actor type as character. And for this one, the language is common. Koji knows Draconic, and since I'm using the polyglot module, I can enter a language. If you're not using the polyglot module, you're not going to see a language option show up at all. The provoking action, the list is a little longer for me here because I'm using MIDI QOL, which sort of expands what we can latch onto in the automation. For example, critical hits, you need MIDI QOL to assign sayings specifically to critical hits. By default, if you're loaded up in a world without any other modules engaged, there's a couple things like that that's going to be missing from this. Here's where you could put the item name that you want it to occur for. In this other example, we have Winter's Cruel Fang, which is a sword that this fighter is using. You get special crits here, just like in Dungeons and Dragons. Specific beats general, because this is more specific than the other one. It has an item name. When that item uses it, it will use this one instead of the other one. And that priority system is evident throughout. Back over here to our regular Koji crits configure saying setting. I want to let you know that there also are these two wild card options. I could look for tokens. I dropped a thing on the thing. I could look for tokens named Koji with a wild card. And this makes it even easier. I can have way more Kojis doing things. We could do that with Kobold. Look at all the kobolds that are available. Well, no, I mean, we can't actually see those, but any of them that start with kobold and then have something else after it, or even nothing else after it, anything that could make sense, or even nothing for that wild card is going to be included. It works the same way for... Let's get the spelling correct here. It works the same way for our item name down here. If you want a specific attack, spell, item, whatever, feature, I could put action surge. I could put longsword, hand axe. I could even do this and click that, and that way any kind of axe or anything that has axe or sword, in this case, in its title or its name that he uses could trigger this. Now, I want this to work for all of his other crits, so we're going to default to this for now. In the second tab, the chat tab, this is where we set up the where we're going to put our rollable table. Now, I prepared some rollable tables for him because this is a character I actually play on occasion. I say on occasion, it's like once a week. Let's open up our rollable table directory. And again, if you're a player character and you've got the permission settings turned on from your GM and they say, hey, have at, go crazy with it. As long as you can create a rollable table, you can do this. You can go over to the table tab and start making it. That's what I did, and I started using this as a GM first, and then I started using it as a player. So you got options here. I'm using the Koji crits table. I keep the names the same so I don't lose my mind and get confused about what's going on. But there's no rule that says your rollable table name has to match the title of the saying setting. I do that so that I can keep track. You can pull it from a compendium. If I had set up a roll tables compendium that was specifically dialogue, maybe I would put that there. It's a little bit slower, especially for audio and rollable tables to come from the compendiums, especially if they're larger. But for smaller tables, it's really not a big deal if you want to bring them from the compendium. It's just a little smidge quicker coming from the world. Having a bunch of tables like this for hundreds of characters could slow down loading times for players. So if you're a DM and you're using this for every possible enemy type, and you've got hundreds or thousands of different sayings across hundreds of different rollable tables, you're going to want to use compendiums anyway. But for most of us, I mean, we've got a few here, but it's not too crazy. This is perfectly fine. Now, sometimes you just want them to say one thing. You can put in something here, and that's what they'll say. Super easy. Because we're pulling from a rollable table, I have it set to random. You can also do a random draw from the table that honors the replacement settings in the table. If I open Koji Crits and then go to Edit and Summary, you can see Draw with Replacement can be toggled on or off. And what that means is the results will lock once it's been drawn and unlock once the table has reset. And it will, when it rolls, ignore the locked ones, the ones that are already drawn. Maybe you don't want your character to say the same random things all the time. Maybe you want an NPC or villain to go through a monologue a couple lines at a time every time they attack. And so they have to go through in sequence. And then once they are done, they will no longer say anything. Maybe the sequence matters, but it's okay if it loops. We have that option too. Generally, though, I set it to random because it doesn't matter to me. For this particular character, that's kind of been my rule, but when you're a GM especially and you're setting all this up, get crazy with it and do what you want to do to get what you want to happen. You can have these be a whisper. Kind of depends on what you want to do. I don't typically do that. Now, I do suppress the quotes, and I do suppress the pan. You can turn this off in the settings, but some characters, let me say that differently. Some players or some tables like the pan to token option. It is per person, per player setting. It's client side. So, you know, the GM could turn it off in Foundry, but it might work for a player. And if this is happening a bunch of times during attacks while they're trying to learn or look at something elsewhere in the scene, it can be a pain in the butt. As a player, I click this option to suppress the pan to token, just out of respect for the other players at the table. As a GM, you can play around with this and create some cool dramatic moments with that panning. And for this one, this is where I'd save it, but I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to show you another option, okay? Down here, we can see it's kind of behind my head. Here we go. Koji yells. I have an audio option. This one's very specific. Again, you can see I named it Koji Yells. I don't have a table for this because you can do a table of sayings to go along with the sound if the sound is like just a sound effect, for example. So you can mix and match sound and like things sent to the chat. I'll show you a little bit more about that. Down here for the action type, I chose to prompt other Shift P on token. So when I hold Shift, press P on token, Koji will say a pre-recorded line that I recorded. I don't use this one because I think it's kind of cheesy, but I set it up to use as an example. In the chat tab, I wrote the text here. This is in case someone has their audio down. Audio settings are all client side, so some players adjust things differently, and maybe they can't hear it. I put your heartbeat offends me in here so that it'll go to the chat, they can see it. Now on this one, I don't know what their settings are, but I chose to leave pan off because this is a big one. I put a sound file on there. It's a really hard line to say your heartbeat offends me to someone. And so when I say this and when I use this, I have to manually hit Shift P. It's going to play the sound. It's a dramatic moment. If they have pan to token speaker on, I want them to come and look at my token, speak this. If they don't, it's not going to make or break anything. But if it's there, I want to take advantage of it. So I left that unchecked. Remember, checking this means it suppresses it and prevents it. Maybe you don't like chat bubbles at all. Maybe you don't want it to go to the chat. I tend to always leave the quotes off. I think they look weird. It's there if you want it. I think it looks weird. For my audio file, I've got it there. I push the volume up to 1. You can use a playlist, and you can pull from a compendium. Next is trigger. Over in the trigger tab, we can trigger by conditions. You can put, let's put bloodied, or we could put stunned. You can add in a delay. And again, for conditions, you can do a wildcard search for special ones. You can adjust the likelihood as a percentage rate. You can give something a priority or a limit. Maybe it can only go 10 times. A 0 is infinite. Post-trigger macro, so after it happens, you can run a macro, which is, if you're using token magic, lots of fun options here. These won't all show up if you don't have them imported and so on, but any macro you want that you have available to your user should be there. And then whether or not it's active. This will be on by default. You don't have to worry about that. Now, I have this one set to prompt on Shift P, and the other one set to prompt on crits. So I'm going to go ahead and show you both of those. It's super simple, not a crazy deal. Let's close this. Let's close this. You know what? Let's just escape out of all of that. All right, so we are targeting this kobold as Koji. And what I want to do is attack the kobold with any of my weapons, try to get a critical hit, and on a critical hit, we will see something show up in the chat over here. Is that showing up good on the screen? That's showing up great on the screen. All right. Let's use our moon-touched sword. And do one-handed. Hey, we got a critical hit. Now there's a 10% chance Koji on a critical hit will just say ... Sometimes silence is way cooler, and I put that in as an option for him. But we got to see it happen. It puts it out right after the attack resolves so that it's easy to read and catch. I'll be honest, as a player, I'm constantly scanning the chat to see what's going on. Other players don't. Maybe 7 times out of 10 somebody will see that my character said something and comment on it, and they probably comment on it in Discord, because during combat when it's not our turn we tend to mute unless we have, we're going to try and say something or interject, just out of respect for everybody else. So if you're expecting, hey, we're gonna pull off a hardcore line on a crit and everyone's gonna cheer and clap, we're playing online, it's not as you're probably not going to get that crazy of an effect out of everybody. But, then we have our cool ones like that audio one where I can select Koji's token, hold shift, and in my case press P. Your heartbeat offends me. Throws the message in the chat, plays the auditory message. Brilliant. The last thing I'll show you is configuring settings for this in your little setting menu over here. Look at all these modules. Not a one of these is causing a problem with this. All right, here in the token says settings, you can open the sayings. It'll take you to the same list to the way it was the last time you were in there. So if it's searching for Thad, it's only going to show me Thad. If it's searching for Koji, it's only going to show me Koji. Whatever's left. And when you get a lot in there and you're looking for something, that search, super nice, super nice. If a module of yours interferes with using a pipe separator, it's pretty rare. I haven't had this occur, but it could happen. There's edge cases. You can change the separator that you use. Preloading audio on scene load is useful if you're using audio. And then you have the option to suppress different things throughout here. This just prevents those from happening. Cancel condition. Maybe an unconscious, dead, or incapacitated person won't be able to say it. Incapacitated is an effect that occurs when you're dead or unconscious when I use Foundry, so I probably could get away with just putting incapacitated there. I think that actually works for sleeping and stunned in Foundry as well. So you might be able to get away with just one. But you can be specific. Specific beats general anyway, and covers your butt a little bit. By default, these settings are here where it searches the world first for your playlists and rollable tables. You can turn those off if you want to prioritize the compendiums. I don't have a default compendium set, but you can set a default compendium. That kind of smooths things out if that's what you're going to do. All in all, the settings are pretty simple. I will be updating a couple pieces of verbiage on that as we go on, and I'm going to update the ReadMe more on GitHub. If you're using something that isn't D&D 5e or PF2e and you run into any issues with your system, hit me up and let me know. I highly recommend the System Agnostic MIDI QOL and System Agnostic Polyglot if you're using those. That expands the functionality on these greatly. Looking forward to maintaining this for a while. So, yeah, use the bug report function or issue report function on GitHub. I'll drop links for the GitHub and the JSON link in the description. Most of you probably found this video by coming from the GitHub, so you already know where it is. And be on the lookout. I might change the name of the module simply because it will allow me to submit it to Foundry so that it's a little easier for you guys to find and install through the thing. If you try to install token says through Foundry by searching for it, it'll take you to Hannah's previous version that she was maintaining, and I haven't been able to get a hold of her. And it hasn't been working. So there we go. One step at a time. I'm just doing this in my free time. If you got something out of this, let me know. If I didn't explain something well enough, comment, and I'll try and explain over, in a comment. Or if it just, if it sucks really bad, guys, I'll make a new video. It's not a big deal. Let me know. Peace. P on token.